G'day chemistry students, welcome to our Module 3 playlist, all about reactive chemistry. Now in this topic, what we're going to be looking at are all sorts of chemical reactions, what types of chemical reactions, how they work, what they produce, and as well looking at why and how chemicals react together. Let's get into today's first lesson. Now in this one, we're going to be looking at dot points 3.1.1, 2, and 4. And our main focus is going to be looking at chemical reactions and the changes that take place. Really, it's just setting the scene, and in some ways, it's sort of revising some of the concepts that we have already looked at in our introductory modules. What I want to talk about first today is the idea of a chemical reaction. And the main principle is that we have a set of substances that can then change into something else. So for example, if I have element A and element B and I put them together, I can make a new molecule that's composed of AB. If AB already exists, I can also break them down back into those elemental components. If I have A and B and react it with C, maybe I can make A and C together and have B by itself. There are lots of different ways that we can reconstruct and rearrange atoms to form new substances, and that's going to be the really pivotal or main concept that we look at with chemical reactions, is that we are always forming new substances that are either more complex or more simple. In this example here, what we have is CH4 or methane reacting with oxygen, forming carbon dioxide and water. And what you'll notice is that the products on this side of the reaction are composed of the reactants that are over here on this side of the reaction. That there are 4 oxygens that we begin with here, 2 O2s, that then move over to the other side. There's one single CO2 that has 2 oxygens and 2 H2O molecules as well that have 2 oxygens as well, meaning that there are 4 oxygens on both sides, that there's also 4 carbons on both sides, and there are 4 hydrogens on both sides as well. And this comes back to our understanding of the law of conservation of mass, which we talked about in some capacity over the first 2 modules. And what that essentially means is that matter cannot be created or destroyed, but changed into other things. And what that means when we're looking at chemical reactions is that atoms can't just magically disappear or turn into something completely different. When a chemical reaction happens, we need to take all atoms into account and make sure that the exact same count of elements end up being on both sides. And that's where our stoichiometry or our molar ratios or our balancing equations, whatever you want to call it, comes into play. And that's where we alter the number of the number of molecules on both sides to ensure that the number of atoms of each type of element are equal across our products and reactants. Another concept to sort of think about is when a chemical reaction occurs and we form new substances, there's going to be these changes in chemical composition. In other words, as I said before, a formation of new substances. And what that's going to mean is that our new substances probably have some different chemical and or physical properties. There may be some similarities, but in most cases, there'll be some quite large differences. So when we look at chemical properties, that might be differences in oxidation states, the available electrons for reactions. There may be differences in bonding. Coordination number is something that we haven't focused on all that much, so I'll skip over it. But there might also be some different kinds of properties here which describe how, when, and how vigorously they react. And they may be things like toxicity, flammability, corrosivity, reactivity, or heat of combustion, the amount of energy that's released. There may be some differences in physical properties as well. And these are things that you've been looking at all throughout science through school, so I'm not going to be focusing on them too much. Something all the way back from Module 1 is that we looked at evidence of chemical reactions, the idea that we might be forming gas, changing temperature, producing energy, possibly in the form of heat or light or some other kind of radiation. There may be changing color or formation of a new substance in general. And so either we're having some form of evidence that say for gas or color that we've made something new, and a lot of the time that is through color change or gas change, but we may also see changes in energy levels as well, either that things are taking in energy or releasing it. Now, these kind of changes that we see here, the production or consumption of energy, changes in temperature, etc., we'll look at it in a lot more detail during Module 4. The idea of formation of a new substance is something that we'll pay a lot more attention to in Module 3. Now that's all for today. We'll have a little bit of a discussion about what chemical reactions are and what they represent and what they mean and how they work in class. But moving into the next video and into the next lesson, what we're going to be focusing on is balancing equations and doing a little bit of revision on some of those activities that we've done already. But in particular, what my focus is going to be on is trying to write up equations and balancing them simply based on worded formula and building some of those skills. But until then, have a good one.